The Cambridge interview process is very important to see this as one part of the assessment. So we look at many things about each candidate. In our minds, when we're doing an interview, the sorts of things we're thinking about are whether or not the person in front of us has the right kind of background knowledge needed for our courses, whether we think they'd be successful in our kind of teaching environment. And to put it in a nutshell, really, can they think?
You shouldn't be surprised to find those interviewing you are taking notes during the interviews. This is because they need to remind themselves of topics which have been covered, both during and in subsequent discussion of the interview performance.
What we're expecting out of students in those interviews is firstly that they are listening really carefully to what they're being asked. And we're interested to find out how people are thinking. So in their responses, if they can take us through their own thought processes, then that's great, because it means that we can see how they're exploring those ideas.
In the arts and social sciences, we will often make use of a student's UCAS personal statement and their supplementary questionnaire that they fill in specifically for Cambridge. We're not evaluating the quality of their writing in the statement, we're asking them to say some more about things they have told us about themselves, about their extracurricular academic engagement, and about their interest in the subject that they want to read.
For a technical interview like natural sciences or engineering or mathematics, then what we're looking for is how teachable they are. We're looking at how interested in the material they are, how they can take an idea and develop that, even if it's something that they perhaps haven't necessarily seen before.
The questions we ask at interview are designed to push the candidates and to make them think hard. What you hope to do is to start with something which they will be able to answer, but to get progressively more difficult as you go through the problem. And often the candidate who thinks they haven't done very well will have done well because they'll have actually progressed further through the problem. We would expect candidates by the end of the interview to feel that there was something that they haven't been able to answer.
Starting with something that hopefully we've already covered in some degree and you should know, what role do bases actually play in the hereditary nature of DNA?
A triplet code, so 3 bases together code for 1 amino acid, and then different combinations of those codons in DNA build up a chain of amino acids and code for proteins.
Okay, so why is it 3? Why is the codon made up of 3 bases? Why not just 1 base?
Because the 3 bases are needed so that you can have different combinations to code for different amino acids. There's only 4 bases, so
right.
If you only had a single base, you would only be able to code for 4 amino acids. Whereas we have a triplet code which codes for 20 different amino acids.
Is it 20? How many combinations can you have with?
With 3. I'm going to write something down.
Yeah.
So.
Oliver gave a very positive interview, actually. I think he answered the questions very well. What I particularly liked was that he didn't give up. He kept on trying to work out answers, and he was listening to the information that we were giving him, and you'd see flashes every so often. You go, oh, of course, that's that. I've connected it together. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'd be looking for.
It can be quite difficult, I think, when you come into an interview situation to remember that we want you to do well. So if you can take a moment to gather your thoughts and make sure that you understand the question that's being asked of you and what you want to say in response to that. And I think Natalie handled that really well. She took a few moments to reflect and she thought about the kinds of things that she was interested in without ever dodging the question. She always talked about relevant material, but she did it in a way that I think allowed her to express her own interests in the subject.
We run a holistic admissions process, so we try and collect as much information as we can about a candidate. A lot of that comes from the paper record, so a record of examinations, for example, the personal statement, the reference from the school. The interview is just one component of that whole process. It's not the be-all and the end-all. It can tell us important information about a candidate, but it's not necessarily the most important factor in our considerations.
The single piece of advice I'd give any student coming for interview is to listen carefully to the questions that they're being asked.
And if you don't understand a word, ask for clarification.
Be yourself as much as possible. We are assessing you to see whether we can teach you effectively. So the more you are like you in your interview, the better.